I'm going to. There we go. And it's all yours, Miss Tori. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that introduction. Let me go ahead and let me share my screen so that you all can see what we're going to be doing today. Let's go here. Alrighty, so can everyone see the screen? You know, I can only see so much here. But my name is Tori Allen. I am the program coordinator for the Epilepsy Foundation of Michigan. Thank you for joining us today and sitting in on this session. I know it's everyone's lunch break, but I did want to give you some information and kind of just, you know, introduce who we are as a foundation, what we do, and how we serve our community members and hopefully your community members as well for anyone that is living with epilepsy. If you need me, here is my direct phone number right here. We can go through some contact information towards the end, but we will go ahead and get started. So who are we, right? Who are we? What do we do? We as well, we are a statewide nonprofit organization focused solely on epilepsy. The foundation here, we provide information, resources, support to help our individuals understand and manage epilepsy. We'll dive a little bit more into what that means in a few more slides, but essentially we want to be able to fill those gaps that our medical professionals don't always touch on and kind of, you know, have those conversations and have those resources available to make sure that people's quality of life is where it should be as they navigate and manage life with epilepsy. Epilepsy affects Michigan residents all over. In fact, we've actually had brick and mortar offices in Kent County, Wayne County in the past, and now we're actually serving right here out of Oakland County in Southfield. The state of Michigan, we actually have 108,900 individuals living with active epilepsy, which includes our older adult population. And now data is telling us that that is going to be and is the fastest growing population living with epilepsy. On a grand scale, 3 million people in the US live with epilepsy, and of those that are 18 and older. So 1 million of those 3 million, those are actually our older adults that are age 55 and up. So they make up a good portion of that community and that population. And now more than ever, you know, our task is learning how to navigate epilepsy and its ever-changing effect on our different communities as things begin to change. Our mission is to lead the fight and overcome the challenge of living with epilepsy and to accelerate therapies to stop seizures, find cures, and save lives. You know, ultimately, epilepsy can be a debilitating disease in different areas of life. It can be a little bit aggressive and sometimes tricky to navigate. So we do all of our programming, our resource calls, political advocacy work, and even our outreach with our core values in mind, with compassion, being open-minded, reliable, and being ethical. And this is our team. We are small but mighty. We are a small staff of 9 here in our office, and we each support a different aspect of our mission. So that's whether someone wants to participate in one of our 5 strolls that we have around Michigan, whether someone needs help locating a neurologist or an epileptologist, if we have someone experiencing any workplace or school discrimination, we're there to assist with that. If someone calls and wants to be seizure safe certified, or, you know, if you just have people that are having a new diagnosis, or if they're having new signs and symptoms and they quite, you know, don't know what to make of it, we're here for help and support. So we can pretty much put on our hats and tackle anything that our community members need. We have someone on staff that can help with all of those things. And if we don't have the answers, we're able to call on our large and growing network. We're very, very blessed to have a lot of community partners to get our community members where they need to be. So if it's not something that we have, if we don't have an answer, we're still going to get you exactly where you need to be. So anyone on this call, I extend a very, very warm invitation to give us a ring if you ever have anyone that needs resources or assistance, and we can definitely get you connected and get our community members connected where they need to be. And then there's little old me right on the left side of that picture. So diving into the meat, right? What is epilepsy? What does that mean? Epilepsy is the general term for a variety of neurological conditions characterized by recurrent unprovoked seizures. For us, we're going to term unprovoked as not caused by anything, and most importantly, how we are going to describe our seizures as a brief disturbance in the electrical activity of the brain that can cause a temporary change in movement, awareness, feelings, behavior, and other bodily functions. Now, this looks different for everyone. So some people may have all of these signs and symptoms. Some may only have one or two. It'll look different. So as they look different, they're going to look different for everyone, and that's regardless of age, sex, or ethnicity. Many of us are familiar with seizures that we may see, present as jerking movements, partnered with unconsciousness, but they also present in other ways, especially for our older adults. It's very easy to label certain patterns or behavior as just a part of active aging, but this is why epilepsy education is so important. Epilepsy is the fourth most common neurological disorder in the US, and that's following migraine, stroke, and Alzheimer's disease, which, a lot of people are very familiar with and have family members that do live with those conditions. About 1% of Americans have some form of epilepsy, and nearly 4% will develop epilepsy at some point in their lives. So to put that 1 in 26, 4% in perspective, I say, think of a classroom, right? The average classroom size may be from anywhere from 20 to 35, right? So in that one classroom, in each classroom in that building, at least one person at some point will develop epilepsy. The number of Americans who have epilepsy is greater than those with MS, multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's disease, and cerebral palsy combined. And here at the bottom of the screen, we're not going to go through all of these, but I just wanted you to be a little bit familiar and, and see some of that terminology that you may hear, that if someone ever calls and, they say, well, I'm having this sort of seizure, or if you're able to, recognize that in conversation, if you're able to refer them over to us, this kind of helps us know, some of the things that they're experiencing and kind of what their journey with epilepsy may look like. So some of those most common terms, they were previously termed as grand mal and petite mal, but we are moving towards more gentle and inclusive verbiage and terminology. So now we're deeming them as tonic-clonic or generalized absence seizures. You may hear the term focal aware. You also may hear focal impaired awareness seizures. So there's different names, there's different categories, and epilepsy looks different for everyone. So people may have one form of a seizure, they may have multiple. And even as they age, they can also change. So thinking of those numbers, what does epilepsy look like in our communities of color and our underrepresented communities? Epilepsy is a disease that does not discriminate. And again, this is why education is so important, so that we can best change and address and educate around stigma, right? Knowledge is power. We hear that term thrown around all the time. We use it, but it's true, because in that truth, we're able to empower our communities, and empowering them can lead to better care, quicker and better diagnosis, quality of life, open communication, and most importantly, it really can create, a support system that they otherwise wouldn't have. Now, to go over a couple of numbers, according to our 2018 census, African Americans and Hispanic persons nearly account for 40% of those diagnosed with epilepsy. So if you think about that, in a room of 10 people that would have epilepsy, almost half of them would be persons of color. We have 375,000 African Americans with active epilepsy, 710,000 Hispanic persons living with epilepsy, 3 in 200 Asian Americans with epilepsy, and 51,000 American Indians and Alaska Natives that live with active epilepsy. Now, by active epilepsy, we mean one of three things or a combination of all. When we talk about active epilepsy, we mean those being diagnosed by a doctor, they are taking a anti-seizure medication, or having at least one seizure per year. Now, looking at those numbers, and seeing how they affect our underrepresented groups. We've also found that marginalized groups are more likely to be diagnosed with epilepsy after traumatic events. So we're thinking about strokes, we're thinking about head injuries. And further, socioeconomic factors let us know that our marginalized groups are more susceptible to poor health as well as poor health conditions. So they're more likely to be diagnosed in an emergency room rather than with a team of specialists compared to their Caucasian counterparts. And further, they are actually more at risk for sudden unexpected death from epilepsy. So sometimes you may hear this referred to as shortened as SUDEP. All in all, there are many compounding factors that begin to affect our marginalized communities when it comes to treating, diagnosing, and living with epilepsy. So with all these numbers in mind, they still apply. You know, these are statistics that are pulled from our 2018 census, some of our most recent data and research that's also been conducted by our national office. So we are right at the forefront of figuring out how to navigate this in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion as well. So taking a look at older adults in epilepsy, right? So we're going to shift a little bit of focus and just learn a little more about how that looks with our target population that a lot of us do work with, which is our older adults. Now, I have a short video for you here. This is actually not our video. This is a video produced by the Swiss League Against Epilepsy stationed in Europe. So just as epilepsy affects our residents here in Michigan and in the US, epilepsy also affects individuals abroad as well. See if we can get this. There we go.
People live longer now than they used to. That's brilliant, but it also creates problems because more and more older people are developing epilepsy. Most of them have seizures that affect only one part of the brain. They might be absent for a few seconds or minutes, or one arm might jerk. Some might chew or pick at their clothes. These small seizures can easily go unnoticed or be misinterpreted. People living alone have no one to see the seizure and report on it, which makes diagnosis more difficult. After a seizure, it sometimes takes several hours before an older person is fully recovered, or even days if it was a major seizure. During this period, they can be confused or have memory lapses, so older people or their families can mistakenly think they are developing dementia. The good news is that once correctly diagnosed, epilepsy in older people responds well to treatment. Find out.
Of those older adults living with epilepsy, they make up about 1 million of the 3 million in total living with the disease. And most often they're also partnered with living with other chronic conditions and comorbidities. And this is what can make epilepsy a little bit difficult to notice as an individual. It can be a little bit difficult for family members maybe to even notice. Or friends that may be close by that they interact with. And sometimes it can be difficult to notice, to treat, or it's possible it might be missed altogether depending on certain external factors. So some signs that someone may begin to present with, they may seem confused or dazed. They may start to stare into space more. They may wander. They may have unusual movements that are a little bit different than their day-to-day. Or you may notice that they may be unable to answer questions or talk if you're directing information to them. And in combination with those seizures and their other conditions, it's very common. 8 in 10 adults age 65 or older are living with one or more chronic condition. And again, this is where diagnosis is so important in partnership with specialists and primary care physicians to make sure that medications aren't interacting poorly, and also, to make sure that they are receiving quality care and care that supports good quality of life. And especially as they age, that supports independence as well. Our older adults are our quickest growing population diagnosed and living with epilepsy. And as people are living longer and aging, there's going to be more and more individuals diagnosed with epilepsy as they age. Some of those other conditions may include anxiety and depression, diabetes, that can be type 1 or type 2, autoimmune disorders or respiratory conditions. And oftentimes as individuals begin to age, we may see them living with epilepsy and beginning to battle dementia or Alzheimer's, or just, general cognitive decline as a whole. You may start to notice they may forget things, they may repeat things, they may do things a little bit differently than they would have in the past. Or even sometimes we'll see an onset of epilepsy after a stroke. We may see an onset after a head injury. As our individuals get a little bit older, those falls become more frequent. Or sometimes even after severe infection, you may see an onset of epilepsy. And by no means is this to say that, every single older adult battling a chronic condition is going to develop or have epilepsy, but it does let us be aware that as our aging population ages and they get up there in age, it can be a little bit more tricky to manage. But thankfully now we do have better and more medications and treatments where many of our older adults are living seizure-free. And they are living seizure-free many, many years after they've gotten a diagnosis, and after they've received proper care. And here at the foundation, that's one of the things that we really want to focus on. We want to make sure that every person has a place to start in their epilepsy journey. So whether that's they're able to reach us directly, or whether that's they're able to reach us through a partner organization that's learned and is able to refer over to us for information, for resources, if we have to get them connected with something else. Education really, really, truly is the key. And treatment. What does treatment look like? Many older adults have had or used a combination of these things to live seizure-free or to at least control their seizures. There are individuals that have not made it to that seizure-free mark, but we have a lot of individuals that are able to have less frequent or less aggressive seizures. Currently on the market, there's about 20, more than 20 actually, there's about 20 plus anti-seizure medications used in combination. So there are some individuals that may only take one medication to control their seizures. There's other individuals that may take 2 or 3. And there are some, that have to have that trial and error period, because again, like we said, epilepsy affects everyone differently. Another option is vagus nerve stimulation. This one is a little bit popular too. You may hear this mentioned in conversation. This is otherwise known as the VNS. It's a pacemaker-like device, and it's implanted under the chest wall, and it sends stimulation to the vagus nerve via leads. So when this is successful, we've seen seizures in our older adults and even our younger adults with reduced frequency and severity in their seizures. Oftentimes, also as well, brain surgery. Brain surgery is also an option. It is a major surgery, but here we're able to track sometimes where the area of the brain where that seizure is starting at. So surgeons are able to remove a single part of the brain, safely, of course, that is the seizure producing area. And this is only done, when they're sure and confident that it's not going to interrupt movement, speech, or vision, still keeping that importance of quality of life. And these are all treatments that can be discussed on a case-by-case basis with medical professionals. So this is why we also encourage our community members to ask questions and ask about all of their options, right? Because everyone's life functions a little bit different. Everyone has different responsibilities. Everyone experiences different seizures. So because there are options, we are very, 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 very vocal on making sure that our members know that there are more than one option for you, and that you do have the right to talk to your medical professional about all of those options to find what is best for you. We love educating here at the foundation before and after doctor's appointments. So if you ever have anyone that has one coming up, send them over. We can always answer questions. We can create, I call them care packages or care plans of information that they can have, questions that they can ask while they're there, or if there's things that they're not clear about during their doctor's appointment, we are more than happy to provide some extra education and supplemental information for them. So what do we do here? When should you know to refer someone over to our foundation? Our team is small, but strong. We're able to really put on our hats and serve our community the best way that we can with the resources that we do have in Michigan. We don't have every single thing that we like to, but what we do have, we're able to do some really amazing things with. So we are able to connect with our partner organizations, very similar to the SRC, around the state, and often which now are more familiar with the challenges of living with epilepsy. And focusing on our older adults, we're able to connect individuals with support services or other day programs to combat things like social isolation, medication concerns, respite care. So we like to say that we connect people with people, right? Especially serving on a statewide basis. And more specifically, actually, for the next 2 years or so, we're really able to dedicate some time in programming through a wonderful grant partner to extend and foster our partnerships and create some more workshops like similar to this to keep reaching our communities of color and our aging populations and educate the best way that we can to offer our services where needed, whether that's in metro cities, whether that's in more rural areas. Because again, epilepsy doesn't discriminate. So there's people all over the state that are probably experiencing things and don't have the resources or education that they need. We're able to offer one-on-one help through our Here For You helpline and our message portal. And we tackle all kinds of things. So whether it's advocacy, social isolation or psychosocial issues, new diagnoses, seizure safe training, support groups, education, and that can be with an array of different groups, medication concerns or questions. We're even able to help you find the right doctor if you need to, change offices or go to a different health system. We are blessed to have an extensive list and really great relationships with all of our 7 comprehensive adult epilepsy centers here in Michigan. So, wherever people are based in the state, we have relationships with Beaumont Health System, Henry Ford, Mercy Health, Spectrum Health, U of M, Wayne State in partnership with DMC, and lastly, Michigan State with Sparrow. So pretty much in any region, we're able to get our community members the help that they need and see a specialist, whether they need general neurology or whether it's time to touch base with an epileptologist, which is a neurologist that specifically specializes in epilepsy. So what is our Here For You helpline? This is a line that we're able to have here at the foundation. If anyone ever needs that phone number, this is it right here. They're able to give us a call and we're able to just really have one-on-one time to understand what's going on, what their journey is like, what it is specifically that they're looking for. And we can have conversations around diagnosis, treatment, different epilepsy or seizure types, healthcare costs, finding a doctor, employment, school issues, depression and stress, memory problems. And aside from that phone number, they're also able to get in touch with us via our message portal as well. Some people like that social interaction, so they give us a call. Other people like to get straight to the point, give us the pertinent information that we need, and they can also do that through our message portal. And those come directly to us so that we're able to follow up and touch base with our community members. On the right side of the screen here, we have a Call and Connect network. It is our series of support groups. These are grouped by age to the best of our ability. We try and group them by age and as well by the needs that we're noticing within our community. So every week on Thursday, this particular group, this is our older adults and caregivers group. These are individuals age 55 and up that live with epilepsy and or take care of an individual with epilepsy. They meet weekly on Thursdays and they meet via Zoom because they are all over the state of Michigan. And they talk about their experiences, how they're feeling, doctor's appointments, new hobbies that they may have, and honestly, just aging in general. They talk about what that looks like in, their 50s and 60s and 70s living with epilepsy. It truly is an amazing group. They're my pride and joy. They're absolutely wonderful. And they create such an amazing support system from one another. Having that aspect of empathy, you can certainly see how much they appreciate it for sure. It's an amazing group to be a part of. This will also be one of the supplemental pieces that will be available to you, so that if you need to register someone, or if you have someone that you can think of that may benefit, my information is right here at the bottom of this flyer, so that you can send that to them as well, or register them, or give me a call if you need help or questions with anything. It's a growing group. We love having new members come in and introduce themselves and really just partake in something amazing. It's a really great, safe place. And this here, through our national foundation, you have access to on-demand trainings about epilepsy and seizures. These are great resources to learn and educate yourself, family, friends, coworkers through this learning portal. It really is a learning portal. You also have access to continuing education credits if needed. So if you ever have someone, let's say that is CHEST or MCHEST certified, there are resources here for them. They're great for team building, exercises for education in the workplace, and that's really no matter where you work. And I say that because a person living with epilepsy can be anywhere. A person living with epilepsy can be anyone's family member or friend, and education is where it starts. So being able to log into this here, you create your own password and username, and you can go in and select which classes you'd like to go through and learn and read about. Or even if you like to do a workshop, we can arrange that here through our foundation as well. We're able to do workshops and get our community members seizure safe certified, so that you have the ability and tools to assist someone if they are having a seizure, to educate yourself and and share that information and be an advocate and be an ally. Ooh, I'm going too fast here. Now, how can you be an ally? What does that look like? Being an ally comes in many different forms, right? That comes in many different forms depending on who you're working with, depending on what your cause is. But here at the foundation, we really say that a great way to be an ally and advocate is to really start familiarizing yourself on seizure first aid. These few steps here in this purple form, this will also be available to you as well as a supplemental piece. But it walks you through very quickly, if you are with someone or if you're out in public, on how you can help someone if they are having a seizure. You're going to want to always stay with them. You're never going to want to leave them alone. If you're able to, you want to stay with them. You want to keep the person safe. Absolutely keep them safe. That's always one of our first priorities. And you want to turn them on their side. This is one of the steps that everyone is oftentimes most familiar with, but turning them onto their side is a very key piece. And then there are certain criteria that you may need to or want to call 911 for, so it walks you through that as well. And then it even gives you a few steps of things that you want to avoid if you're able to. So you don't want to restrain them, and you don't want to put any objects in their mouth. So this walks you through. This is a poster form, so this is something you can post on social media. If you'd like, you can put this in your break room. You can put this in your office. Just how we, post certain signs, in our workplace. This is a great piece of information to have to keep everyone educated and aware. And if they need to reach us for any questions or concerns or further workshops, our information is here as well. And I always tell everyone, having independence and pushing our older adults to take part in their health is a really, really, really great way to be an ally. Encourage them to ask questions at their visits, bring up their concerns, refer them over to us if they have a seizure or multiple seizures, or even if they aren't sure if they're having seizures, send them on over. We are more than happy, and we welcome questions and concerns. If they do have a new diagnosis or a pending diagnosis, send them on over as well. You can get involved with us here. Luckily we're a little bit more local, which is great. So we're able to do things with our partner organizations here in the Oakland County and Wayne County areas. We love having new volunteers. We love connecting with our neighbors. Our strolls are our biggest events and fundraisers. We all come together, and this is when we really, really bring a lot of energy and passion to fight stigma, to fight SUDEP, isolation, misdiagnosis, and to truly promote health and equity. And in unity as well. It allows us to come together, especially in the time they're in with COVID. We're able to come together and we can bring awareness and educate in a really fun manner. And there are a lot of times outside, people bring their families, people bring their kids. They create teams for the stroll. We have 3 left this year, taking place in Midland, Michigan, here in Detroit, and in Grand Rapids. Our Detroit stroll is actually our biggest stroll, and it's held at the zoo. That is coming up on the 18th. You can still register if you like. I have a little bit of that information here. You can find your registration links right at epilepsymichigan.org. And this bottom screen here on the left-hand side, this is what you should see once you click the registration button. I'd love to see everyone there. Register yourself, bring a friend. We love for you to get active and get involved within our community. We love to meet you. We love to have you. And that brings me to the end here. You can always find context and information right at our epilepsymichigan.org website. Our national foundation is reachable at epilepsy.com. Again, our Here For You helpline. If you have questions or if you have community members that need to reach us, we're at 1-800-377-6226. We also have a national 24/7 helpline, which is listed here. And then my information, if you ever need me, is right at the bottom. So now I have taken up half of your lunch break, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I'm going to hand it back over to Christy so we can answer some questions.
Thank you so much. That was a lot of good information. I do have a couple questions myself. So as we're waiting, everyone, if you have questions, feel free to either throw them in the chat or just simply come off of mute and you can ask your question openly. Could you talk a little bit about the advocacy that the Epilepsy Foundation does on a state level or a local level? What does that look like?
So for us right now, that's looking like state and local. We have some things in the works for some seizure safety acts for schools, for example. Just how teachers have certain requirements to, to be able to do certain things in the classroom. We really want to make sure that our teachers are able to handle a seizure in their classrooms if they have, to make sure that they're educated and aware, and to make sure that that's a baseline across the board. We're finding that some teachers, may just be, kind of basically familiar. They don't quite know what to do, or sometimes they don't know what that looks like affecting students, behaviorally, how they function in the classroom. So creating some of those policies at the state level really creates a baseline for our education system to be able to, manage and work with students that do have epilepsy. On the local level, it varies. We get all kinds of calls. So sometimes for us, advocacy can be workplace advocacy, whether that's in places like Tim Hortons, or if you're a school teacher, or if you work for Ford or GM. That's kind of like a case-by-case basis. Sometimes we can do third-party things. If you ever need some extra oomph or some extra strength when you're working with someone, if you need, some backup, so we're there to educate. We're there to, to kind of steer people in the fair direction. We're very, very big on making sure that people's rights aren't violated. So sometimes we touch base on those type of things in advocacy. Again, even for students, we do things within the school. A lot of times students will need a 504 or an IEP. So we're able to do things with that. And actually, we've just learned recently that adults can also have that particular individualized plan in their workplace. So we're learning a little bit more with that as that's new.
Very interesting entry. Renee, did you want to say a little bit more?
No, I was just reiterating in the chat, like for maybe teachers, that's where some of those other like 504 plans for their own employment may come into place.
Very interesting. I don't know if there's any other questions, but I do have another question, a little bit more information about your seizure safe certification or your seizure first aid. It sounded really, I want to say easy, but it sounded, I know there are two different things it sounds like, but if you could talk a little bit about your seizure safe certification, and then for the seizure first aid, is it pretty much just the kind of the poster and kind of talking through those 1, 2, 3 steps in that kind of way?
So the first aid is kind of like that. Like you'll see okay, let's say like you're walking to a stop sign. You see a stop sign, you know exactly what to do. Your first aid poster is kind of that. It tells you exactly what to do if you're in the moment. So for someone that's completely, unaware, they're not familiar, these are, a few easy steps. If the person next to you is having a seizure, if you can follow these until some medical personnel get there, you should be okay, right? That certification piece looks a little bit different. That is more of a course per se. And I'm even hesitant to say course because I don't want people to think that it's, you know, a 6-week course that you have to take.
Mhm.
Through that learning portal, you are able to sit wherever you are, whether you're on your couch, whether you're at work, and it's about an hour or so course. And you go through like simulations. There might be a couple questions throughout the presentation that's there. And then you do have a little bit of a testing period afterwards, and then you are given your certification. That certification is, I want to say, good. Renee, pop in. How long is that certification good for?
It lasts for 2 years.
2 years,
So,
yes.
Yeah,
So
for a
that
90-minute
certification-
class, you get a 2-year certification.
Yes,
Great.
so you were able to keep that, and that keeps you certified. Even myself, when I started here, I also sat and I got certified as well. I was familiar, you know, with those 1, 2, 3 steps, but you know, that course is a little bit more in depth. And even that, you know, is great for workplace bonding, education, things like that. And that is accessible through the portal as well.
So all of this is located on your learning, you have some type of learning management system that is just accessible through your website?
It is our website. It's our national website. So
Your national website.
Yep, Epilepsy Michigan. We have our own website here that you can go onto and see things. And then for the national website, it is learn.epilepsy.com. That gives you access to the learning.